And no, it's not because you can't afford it anymore. There's no shortage of videos about why Spotify sucks now. The rising prices, the AI content, the CEO's weapons investments, the artist pay, all true, and look, I agree with all of it. But that's not this video. What I want to talk about is something more insidious, how Spotify didn't just become a bad product, but it changed our relationship to music entirely. For the worse. And with that, I don't mean music streaming as a whole. Not Apple Music, not Tidal, not Qobuz, not Pandora, not none of that. I mean Spotify. Specifically and uniquely Spotify. Spotify, unlike other streamers, doesn't organize your library in the tried and true way that most other music applications have successfully used for ages, instead merging the weight of artists, albums, and playlists. They used to follow the traditional model at the beginning, but they gutted it around 7 years ago. Spotify, coincidentally, also became a publicly traded corporation around 7 years ago. Curious. Surely that's not related to that or anything. Curated playlists aren't a problem to me, they're just modern radio, but other streamers still give you a dedicated library that you have full control over. Spotify, however, only wants you to focus on just playlists and like songs. Yes, you can technically add albums to your library, but Spotify treats albums essentially as another playlist, without separating those. This devalues the concept of a work, and even a body of work, incentivizes listeners to only care about specific songs, and discourages artists from making albums that are anything other than compilations of singles. We already are seeing artists that basically don't make albums and their entire discography is just comprised of singles and maybe the occasional EP. That subtly tells users, music is not something to collect, keep, organize, and respect. It tells users that music is a disposable good that serves as a temporary purpose until it doesn't. There's a lot of useless or at least trivial features baked into Spotify that on the surface might make it seem like value adds, but don't really add any value to the music listening experience, and the ones that do aren't exclusive to Spotify. Almost every time you open the app, they will attempt to shove the AI DJ down your throat, despite being nothing more than a radio station with text-to-speech. They have canvases, which is like a video within a song, which would be fine if it was just animated cover art, but more often than not, it's actually just some snippet of the song's music video. If I wanted to watch a music video, I just, well, watch the fucking music video. I find equally useless features like blends or offline mix, and even useful features like Spotify Wrapped aren't really exclusive or dependent on Spotify itself. Last.fm has existed for decades, you know? And they just add clutter and complexity to an experience that shouldn't be that complex at all. I just want to play my music for Jesus' sake. Meanwhile, features that actually do improve the music listening experience are either missing entirely or took them very long to implement. And that's not a coincidence. Look at how many years it took Spotify to implement lossless audio, for example. God forbid music on Spotify doesn't sound like it's being played out of a tin can. But these features, while useless or trivial to most people, aren't useless or trivial to Spotify. They make Spotify a character in the experience, and they attempt to convince you that the music listening experience you want is only achievable within their service. It stops being a provider and it turns it into a player role, one that actively competes for your attention against the music itself. It attempts to detach you from your music and attach you to Spotify itself, all without anything in return that actually elevates the experience or gives you an exclusive of value. Spotify constantly is said to have a great algorithm for music discovery, but I really don't get it. All Spotify has ever done for me is serve me popular music again and again without really bringing any real discoverability. Sure, it finds music similar enough to what you already listen to, and maybe you haven't heard of it before, but no real discovery. Other services tend to prioritize lesser known music, which actually gives smaller artists a chance to be, well, discovered and shared. I have discovered a lot of awesome artists thanks to Apple Music's algorithm and even Tidal's algorithm when I tried it back then, whereas I don't remember discovering anything actually new from when I used to use Spotify. And I used it for years. Hell, I'm an OG Doja Cat stan because Apple Music recommended her music to me before she even put out Moo, the track that put her on the map, even before Say So. That's what real discovery sounds like. The truth is that Spotify is happy with you just listening to Drake for the 20th 20th time today because that actually gets them more money. Spotify sets a minimum stream threshold per month for artists to reach to be able to get paid from their streams, currently at 1,000 streams within a 12-month period per track. If an artist doesn't reach that, they don't get paid at all. That barrier has been increased before, and it will probably increase again later. The less artists are above that threshold, less artists have to get paid. Sure, those payments would be quite small individually, but those savings pile up across the tens of thousands of artists below that threshold. With that threshold in place, Spotify is financially incentivized to never show you smaller artists, which in my opinion, showing you smaller artists is what discovery should actually mean. To me as a musician, this is the one that bothers me the most. And to be clear, I don't think streaming itself is the problem. It's just yet another option to listen to music. And, well, iTunes never went away, CDs never went away, vinyls never went away. Some artists arguably make way too many of them. What I have an issue with is the free tier. By giving access to every single song ever for free with ads, Spotify has essentially devalued music in people's minds to free with ads. And anything above that appears unreasonable to the average person. This was never a problem before, even with free ways to access music. Pirating still gave people a sense of, well, this is technically not allowed, and radio wasn't ever a la carte like streaming services are. But because of Spotify, people now expect for music to be free of charge by default, as if making music was no big deal. And unfortunately, this transcends Spotify now. Some people really think that because music is no longer material, there's nothing to pay for. But when everything is free, the only thing left to compete for is attention. Spotify would rather you listen to ads more than they'd rather you listen to music. But even doubling the amount of ads still won't generate as much revenue as a paid service, because ads actually pay like shit. That leads to artists getting paid way less from Spotify than any paid-only service. Most streaming services are paid for a reason, and it's not just corporate profits. Artists deserve to get paid something for their efforts. But Spotify gets to paint itself as the hero of music streaming.
We believe in free music for everyone, at the expense of the people responsible for making that music.
This is why it also bothers me so much when people say that Apple Music should be free when you buy an iPhone. Even if Apple could eat up all the costs, how valueless do you perceive music to be that you believe you're entitled to free, unlimited, uninterrupted access to it? How insignificant do you think the time, effort, knowledge, passion, and craftsmanship of artists is for you to believe you should give nothing of yours in exchange for getting to enjoy the value of their music in the first place? You might be mad at that, but people didn't act about music like this before Spotify. Normalizing unlimited access to any art for free has led people to believe that that's how it should be. In a world where artistic integrity is being challenged by AI-generated music, valuing human-made art more is, in my opinion, not just apt, but imperative if we want to uphold human creativity. Spotify alone primed us to be further away from that standard than we could have been without them. I'm not anti-piracy, but I'm not a piracy advocate either. I buy physical media, buy albums on iTunes, and pay for Apple Music at the same time, so I definitely spend more on music than most people. And you know what? I do it with pride and glee. I want to support artists monetarily, especially the smaller ones. But compared to Spotify, piracy not only gives you the better deal of actually owning the files, but it actually leads to more revenue for artists. That sounds counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it. When somebody pirated back in the day, there was still a feeling of guilt, and if not guilt, at least a pull to still spend money on artists. Sure, you didn't pay for the digital files, but if you really like the artist or album, you'll make it up to the artist by buying the CD later, or by buying the merch,
Buy my merch.
or by going to a concert. Whatever money piracy lost artists, it made up for in better access laden with guilt or need to provide revenue for the artist in other ways. I mean, does it not strike you as curious that artists made more money back in the Napster era than the Spotify era? But because Spotify normalized the idea that free music with ads is not only legal, but the default, there no longer is that guilt or pull. People think that the ads make up for the free music when they very much do not. Despite the music being free, the revenues from CD and vinyl sales, live events, and merch are all lower than they were in the days of Napster and LimeWire, because nothing encourages the free listener to make up for their free access. You might remember back when TV was full of ads talking about how piracy was a form of theft, but in a way, unlike Spotify, piracy treated music like something worth stealing. I mean, you only steal things that are worth something to you. Look, a clear solution can be to push back by normalizing buying physical again, using iTunes or other digital stores, or even sailing the high seas, but the truth is that streaming itself does come with a lot of benefits on its own. If you still want to benefit from them, really just switch to any other service. I know I've been hyping up Apple Music a lot because that's what I find is the best, particularly when you want to handle both a streaming library and a local library, but just anything else that gets you and the artists you value a better deal will work, which is basically almost anything other than Spotify. The best part about music streaming is that unlike other media, there isn't really any exclusives or omissions like with movies and TV or video games, so switching is as easy as using some transfer service and dedicating a Sunday to the switch. Let's do that before Spotify tries to end that. They are very capable of doing it. And to the founder of Spotify, Daniel Ek, I tell you this from the bottom of my heart, you truly are the worst person in the tech world. Yeah. Fuck it, even worse than Elon, cause at least he makes cool rockets sometimes. Meanwhile, you turn around and call Apple anti-competitive while you tell your engineering team to actively avoid integrating with their platforms out of personal vendetta. You know, the literal definition of anti-competitive. So Danny, from the bottom of my heart, take one of those Israeli military drones you invested in with the money you stole from artists and put it up your ass.
Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.